Today we're going to talk about multiplying monomials. So the first thing we need to do is define what that means. So you multiply monomials, and remember a monomial is just a single term. Like in a polynomial, it's just one term. It has variables and coefficients. So you multiply monomials by first multiplying the coefficients together and then the variables. So our first example says simplify, write your final answer in standard form. So I have 6x to the third times 3x to the fifth. Well, remember 6x to the third just means 6 times x to the third, and 3x to the fifth means 3 times x to the fifth. So what I really have are four things that are being multiplied together: 6, x to the third, 3, and x to the fifth. So when I multiply, I can multiply in any order according to the commutative property. So what I want to do is rearrange these numbers, or these monomials. I want to rearrange them so that I put the numbers together, the coefficients, and then I put the x terms together. So it's going to look like this. I have 6 times 3 times x to the third times x to the fifth. So I have all four of those things there. They're just rearranged. What this does is just allows me to be able to simplify this a little bit more. So I'm going to multiply the things that are alike. So 6 times 3 and x to the third times x to the fifth. Well, I know that 6 times 3 is 18. And x to the third times x to the fifth, well, if you remember our exponent rules, when we're multiplying and the base is the same, and the base is x for both of these, you can just add their exponents. So it looks like this. 6 times 3 is 18, and I get x to the 3 plus 5. And I can simplify that a little bit more and get 18x to the 8th, because 3 plus 5 is 8. All right, example 2. Same type of problem. I'm going to rearrange it first because those are four things that are being multiplied together. So I put the numbers together and the x terms together. So when I rearrange, I get 5 times 2 times x squared times x. And I'm going to multiply the things that are alike, so the 5 and the 2, and then the x squared and the x. Now remember, if there's an x and it doesn't have a variable, that variable is 1. We don't write the 1, but it is a 1 that's there. So that's important when we go to add our exponents. So I'm going to multiply the things together that I can. 5 times 2 is 10, and I get x to the 2 plus 1 because that x term has a 1. And so that gives me 10x to the third. Example 3, same kind of problem. 8x times 4x to the fourth. I'm going to rearrange, put the numbers together and the x terms together. So I get 8 times 4 times x to the fourth. Again, that x, that's all by itself. That doesn't have an exponent. It really does have an exponent. It's just 1. So I multiply. I'm going to simplify now. 8 times 4 is 32. And x times x to the fourth is x to the 1 plus 4, which is x to the fifth. So I get 32x to the fifth. Now, what if I give you one of the things I'm multiplying together and I give you the answer? Can you find the thing that's missing? Well, we're going to kind of work backwards here. So I need to find something that when I multiply it together, when I multiply it with 5x squared, I get 10x to the third. So I'm going to look at each of the parts. I'm going to look at the number parts and I'm going to look at the variable parts. So I'm going to rearrange and I say 5 times some number is going to give me 10, and x squared times x to some number is going to give me x to the third. Well, 5 times what equals 10? Well, if you don't know that right off the top of your head, you could find it by doing 10 divided by 5, and you would get 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Well, x squared times x to some exponent, well, I know that when I add 2 plus something, it needs to equal 3. Well, 2 plus what equals 3? Well, 2 plus 1. So what I get, the factor that's missing is the blue part with the red part. So it's 2x to the first is what I would have to multiply by 5x squared to get to 10x to the third. And 2x to the first is really just 2x. You don't have to write that 1. Here's another one like that. 2x to the fourth times some number equals 8x to the sixth. Again, I'm going to rearrange. So I know that 2 times something is going to equal 8, and x to the fourth times x to some number is going to equal x to the sixth. Well, 2 times what equals 8? Again, if you don't know, you can do 8 divided by 2, and you get 4. So 2 times 4 equals 8. And then I have to add something to 4 to get to that exponent of 6. Well, 4 plus what equals 6? Well, 4 plus 2 equals 6. If I didn't know that, I could do 6 minus 4 to figure out the 2. And so what's in blue and red get multiplied together for my answer. So I have 4x squared, which is 4x squared. So 4x squared times 2x to the fourth equals 8x to the sixth. Example 6, find the missing factor. 8x to the fifth times something equals 24x to the eighth. Again, I'm going to rearrange, so I know I have to have 8 times something equals 24, and x to the fifth times something equals x to the eighth. So I have 8 times something, x to the fifth times x to something equals 24, x to the eighth. Well, 8 times what equals 24? Again, if you don't know it, you do 24 divided by 8, and you get 3. X to the fifth times x to some exponent gives me x to the eighth. Well, I have to add something to 5 to get to 8. So 5 times what equals 8? Well, 5 times 3 equals 8. So the blue and the red are the parts I put together for my answer. I get 3x to the third. So I have to multiply 8x to the fifth times 3x to the third to equal 24x to the eighth. So now it's your turn to practice this. This assignment is not in Alex. This assignment is in Google Classroom. It's a Google form. So you'll have to go into Google Classroom, click on the link to the form, and complete the assignment on there. Please be careful that you read the directions, because you have to put your answers in a very specific way. And in problem number 1, I showed you how to do that. So please make sure that you're putting your answers in like that. Otherwise, it's going to count them wrong. So make sure you're following that protocol on how to do that. All right, so this is the end of the lesson on multiplying monomials. And the next lesson will be on multiplying polynomials. So have a good day, and email me if you have questions on the assignment, or join me during my office hours.